Welcome to Commander Pop Culture, a place to gather magical information with some laughs, might I add. Hello everyone, welcome to the 4th episode of Wilds of Eldraine spoiler season. Gonna get right into it. First off, we got Redcap Gutter Dweller. It's a 4-drop creature that makes 2 black rat creature tokens on ETB that can't block, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, you get to sacrifice another creature. If you do, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on this creature and exile the top card of your library. You could play it that turn. I think it's perfectly fine in a 60 card format or standard. I don't even think it would do well in historic, but for sure a standard card. In Commander, it's not seeing too many cards for its CMC. Maybe Perforos likes this because you're already playing a ton of other creatures that put bodies into play, and that's probably as far as this goes in Commander. Maybe seeing that one card in Perforos every upkeep, some people might actually appreciate that. Red has gotten significantly better at seeing more cards, and I just don't know if this is worth a deck slot anymore if you're playing it just for the card advantage piece. If you don't know what this enchantment does, it makes your spells in your hand basically free to cast, and it lets you cheat out everything. If you can weave enough card advantage spells, you could just play your whole deck with this. Most of the time I see Omniscience Resolve, and if no one interacts with it on the first free cast, I just assume they're going to win the game. If it's getting this kind of a printing, it's going to get an anime version as well. That has not spoiled yet. Let's take a look at how much this is going for. Last time I saw it was around $10, or I think it was around $8. Okay, yeah, $10, 2019 is what you could get this for. Grass of Fate's getting a reprint. I like the art style, a vine with barbs all over it, weaving its way in and out of the chambers of your own heart. If you don't know what this does, it ETBs and you get to exile up to 1 target non-land permanent from each opponent. It's basically a 3-for-1 enchantment in Commander. If you have targeted removal and it hits multiple things, I don't think there's a card in Magic that is this effective for its CMC. This hits 3 non-land permanents. Think of all the applications that has. Again, it has that unique symbol here. It's not a standard legal card, and if it's getting this kind of a version, I assume it's also going to get an anime version. Let's look at Grass Fate. It just got printed in the Commander decks from Commander Masters, and it was sitting pretty high. Ooh, nice. So the Commander Masters one is going for $3. This was at $10 before the reprint. Virtue of Persistence. Its adventure is 2 mana. It's a single target removal. It's sorcery speed where whatever creature you target gets -3/-3 till end turn, and you get 2 life. Its enchantment side is, to begin your upkeep, you get to put a creature card from a graveyard under the battlefield under your control. That's pretty dope. It's kind of like one half of the OG Sheoldred. In case you didn't notice, you could animate any creature under your control, including your opponents.
I had to kill him! He's dead? Not anymore.
That's a really dense card that you got there. You got a good early game and you got a good late game. I could see myself fitting this into just Commander decks if you have black in it. I think in a weird way it's like card advantage. Most other cards don't have an additional ability on them like this. Adventures basically count as 2 spells in my opinion. Goblin Bombardment's going to reprint. This is a classic sack outlet that if you can make infinite bodies, you have a win condition because you just keep sacking them over and over again. You shoot someone for 1 damage. There's tons of ways to do it. $2. Likeness Looter has flying to 2-drop. You could draw a card then discard. I love effects that let you draw first and see the card because it obviously enables you to discard it if it sucks. Having more cards in hand to choose from than fewer is always a better deal. It's usually red where it forces you to discard first, leaving you with lesser options to choose from. X ability. It becomes a copy of target creature control that's in your graveyard, value X, except it has flying and this ability. That's nice. It basically is a weird little shapeshifter that could shapeshift again whenever it feels like it. The looting effect kind of combos with itself because you could discard a creature that's significant and then copy it with Likeness Looter. That's a pretty sweet deal. You might be able to cheat something with that, but the synergy is there. Talion's Messenger. Whenever you attack with 1 or more fairies, draw a card, then discard a card. When you discard a card this way, put a counter on target fairy control. This feels like a really bad rare because you don't get to draw and discard per fairy. It's combat, and if you attack with 3 fairies, you just see 1 card, and then you only have to put 1 counter on something you control. This feels like a standard type of card, but I wouldn't even play this in standard. Seems like an uncommon effect, if you ask me. Extraordinary Journey. Enters the battlefield. Exile up to X target creatures. For each of those cards, its owner may play it for as long as it remains exiled. Whenever 1 or more non-token creatures enter the battlefield, if 1 or more of them entered from exile or was cast from exile, you draw a card. It only triggers once a turn. I kind of sense that people will play this just as double blue and X equals 0 because they're 2 separate abilities. There's plenty of ways where you can cast creatures from exile or enter from exile, like Cascade does that and basically enables you to draw a card. It just seems really inhibitive that it's only allowed to trigger once a turn. This kind of reminds me of the Owl. It says if you play a card from anywhere other than your hand, you draw. And there's no cap to how many times a turn that can trigger. I don't know why they put that cap on it so much. Probably wouldn't play it in standard because you want things to affect the board the turn you play it.
Rest in peace.
This hasn't been printed in a long time. This is the ultimate graveyard hoser. Enters, exile all graveyards, and if a card or token, even a token, goes to your graveyard, it gets exiled. Instead, effects mean in most settings you would think your creature hits the graveyard and then goes to exile. This, because it says instead, it goes directly from play to exile and it denies death triggers. And that's why Rest in Peace is such a house. If you don't utilize your graveyard and you're in white, I highly recommend you throw this in there because you're going to get a lot of groans at the table on resolution, and it'll annoy people just in general. Very significant spell. You get the OG Return to Ravnica one for actually 5, but that's a pretty dope deal. Pick it up if you don't got it, because I think everyone should have that in their collection. Parallel Lives. This is a token doubler. It's asymmetrical in that it only affects yourself. Primal Vigor affects everybody, which is why this is much better. Most people that think of Parallel Lives thinks of Doubling Season, because Doubling Season basically has the same like block of text on itself. I like Parallel Lives more because it's a mana cheaper and its price tag is worth it comparatively to Doubling Season. I think this is around $40. Yeah, get the Innistrad one for 40. This is the anime version. But like I was saying, that 1 mana is a huge deal. It's also got more generic cost to it, so you could ramp into it a lot easier with your rocks if you have, say, Grim Monolith or Mana Vault. I personally would run this in all my token decks, but I wouldn't run Doubling Season. And some people may think I'm off my rocker about that, but I find that the casting costs be significant in more ways than one, and that is why I had enough to say about this card. I would endorse this. I don't know. I'd like to hear people's comments if they understand what I'm saying, or if I'd like to hear people's disagreements. Ingenious Prodigy has Skulk, and when it enters with X +1/+1 counters on it, because it got X on its casting costs. At the beginning of your upkeep, it has 1 or more counters on it. You may remove a counter to draw a card. I think this is a pretty good card in 60 card control, because you get a scaling body either for early and late game, and it draws you cards. And playing control, you always want more cards. I don't know how big of an impact this will make in standard, but I think people will try it. And if it does make a top 8 list, I wouldn't be surprised either. Werefox has Flash. It's a creature. When it enters, exile another target non-fox creature until it leaves the battlefield. For a white and a colorless, you get to sack this card to gain 2 life. It's an O-ring effect on a body. I'm not a big fan of these because creatures are the easiest permanent type to get blown up, but it's good tempo in 60 card formats. I just hope you're not forced to exile a thing with an ETB trigger, because then if it dies, you're basically hooking them up for an additional trigger. The, I guess, nice upside is you could sack it to gain 2 life. It's just whatever. If it's going to die anyways, that's always an option. I guess you're forcing people to use removal on a kind of a bad card. Elemental Racoon.
Don't call me a raccoon! I'm sorry. I took it too far. I meant Trash Panda.
It's interesting. For 2 mana, you could play a Mana Dork, and then it has a 2 mana sync ability to tap itself and return it back to your hand at the cost of discarding a card. And it's 7 costing sorcery adventure. It mills 7 cards, put a creature, enchantment, or land card from among them onto the battlefield. I kind of like this card. If you get an early game, you could play its creature's side, and then if you reach that 7 mana threshold and you have nothing else better to do, you just pitch a land to this and then cast it for its adventure cost and go digging for some kind of advantage. I'm definitely going to probably throw this in my cube. I don't know if it will find a home in standard or in commander because it's just a 2/2 body that makes a mana for majority of the time. Who knows? I'm pretty sure someone out there in the world will find a use for this. Maybe cascade decks like this because it has flex. You eventually get to take advantage of that big casting cost in Modi or Yidris. You get to take advantage of that and then return it back to your hand and do it again as many times as you can afford. I think that's the only application I could see this being really sweet in Commander. I have a buddy that plays a Modi. I think he'll like that idea. So that was it in terms of spoilers for today. If I had to pick a card for the day, Virtue of Persistence. I just love the flex of this card a lot. I like that it's somewhat effective removal, and then it just gets tucked away until you reach that 7 mana to do a significant ability. And it's just a super dense card. It's very rare that you see cards like this. You don't really need a synergy to warrant its play or warrant its deck slot. It could be a staple. I don't know what this might settle in price for. It is a mythic and it's not legendary, so you could literally play 4 of this card in your 60 card formats, although that 7 mana is pretty insane, but you could stockpile them in the adventure zone and it gains you 2 life. This just seems like a control card. The creatures that you're killing with its adventure side could be animated down the road by its enchantment side. Again, it's a card that feeds into itself. I like it a lot. If it settles above $20, I'll understand why, and I think a lot of people would, because I could see this getting play in multiple formats. And making large quantities of mana in the game of Magic is not, unusual. There have been decks that played 7 mana spells in the past, and even in 60 card formats. So I just think that juice is really worth the squeeze. I hope you all enjoyed. If you disagree with my top pick of the day, tell me what you like more, and I'd like to hear your reason why. If you like speculations of the cards, feel free to subscribe because I'm all about helping people out and recognizing what's good and what's not good. And I got a pretty good eye for these kinds of things. So everyone have a good night. Bye.